number of members of the committee here, and we have two of the MPs, as the committee is open to MPs as well. Francine Malloy and Mickey Brady are here as well with us. So if people want to indicate if they have a question, we might take a number of contributions together. Okay.
Can I ask you, Simon Coveney there spoke about a special status for Northern Ireland rather than a special arrangement that Leo Varadkar had spoken about in the past. Just get your reaction to that, and how, what are the chances, I suppose, of getting this all-island approach to Brexit that he has spoken about?
Okay. Senator O'Donnell, I wanted to come in as well.
On the issue of special status, I think it's actually a very significant change in language from the government, but it's a positive one. Because when you reflect upon the fact that the government are mandated by the Dáil to make the case now for special designated status within the EU for the North. So, I mean, the remit of this committee is to look at the implementation of the Good Friday Agreement. If you take the impact of Brexit on the Good Friday Agreement and all of the strands and structures that flow from that, not least the North-South arrangements. For example, the EU Parliament's Committee on Constitutional Affairs have stated that Brexit will require an altering of the Good Friday Agreement. So that's a very unprecedented prospect when you consider that the Good Friday Agreement has been endorsed democratically. It's a standalone. It's been lodged with the European Union, lodged with the UN. So there has to be, and various people, I think, all of the parties here on this committee are agreed that there has to be a special status for the North on the broader social, economic, political reasons. But fundamental to that has to be a defence of the integrity and the primacy of the Good Friday Agreement, because at the heart of the agreement, which we all accepted and signed up to, was that there would be no change in the constitutional status unless it was consented to by the people. So no one has consented to Brexit on this side. Everyone acknowledges that Ireland is very, very different. I wouldn't necessarily share the Minister's hopefulness around the remarks from Michel Barnier when you reflect what he said in the Dáil chamber about the need for customs checks and other arrangements. But I do think it's a significant statement from the Minister today around special status. It's one I think this committee can take heart from. But for our remit and our responsibility, if there is to be a unilateral altering of the Good Friday Agreement by, in this instance, a third party, the British government, then we have to be very, very alert to that. I mean, the Minister said that people, and I think it's an important point to make, people in the North are relying on a voice, and we all hope, and we're all working very, very positively and resolutely to see the institutions back up and running. But there are many people, because when the institutions were up and running, it's a fact of life that the executive and the institutions in the North had very little say at a cabinet level in Britain. So there's nothing to say they would have any additional change or any additional say if the institutions were back up and running. The reality is that people, not least I'm sure the 56% from all walks of life and all cultural backgrounds in the North, are actually looking to the Irish government in the first instance to be their voice, to stand up for them. So I welcome the remarks by the Minister. I think this committee will take a lot of heart, because, and I'll finish on this, Chair, while this has heard evidence from a whole range of contributors, I think at the heart of this report and at the heart of the vast bulk of the contributions was an acknowledgement and a hopefulness that there would be a special status that protects Ireland's national interests.
Thank you, Senator. Deputy O'Sullivan, questions?
Out of the committee for RT. Just your report says that one group before you noted that Brexit has already led to the sharpest polarisation of communities in the last 20 years. How is that manifested?
The reality is that Brexit has polarised people, and maybe that was more acutely felt in the early stages before and after the referendum. And I think in terms of the contribution, if I recall correctly, and you'll forgive me, there was a fair bit of hearings done in relation to this report. I think that also included obviously the community in Britain, where it's actually probably felt more acutely in terms of those who are Remain and those who were for a Brexit. yes, that applies in the north, but keep in mind that the 56% who voted to remain, that vote comes from every background, unionist and nationalist, Republican and loyalist, and everyone else in between. So while not being complacent or blasé about it, thankfully that polarisation hasn't necessarily manifested itself on the street as such. But what we are all acutely aware of, and what the remit of this committee in relation to the Good Friday Agreement has to be, is that that potential is always there. And when it comes to inter-community tension, the EU, through its funding bodies, not least through the peace funding, has played, as members have acknowledged, a significant role. And we saw it as late as 2013 during the flag dispute in Belfast, where community organisations who were funded through peace worked right at the coalface to ensure relationships stayed in place, cross-community projects continued. So, maybe when that was said about the polarisation, it wasn't necessarily specific to the north, and it wasn't necessarily specific to a violent or an on-street manifestation, but certainly I'm not so sure that it's just as acute. I would contest that probably if you were to ask people, if asked other people, would be, those who maybe were Brexiteers would say, what have we done? And would have a different view. But nevertheless, it has caused a degree of polarisation, of that there's no doubt.